Lykaon was a king of Arcadia mentioned in Greek mythology. He is believed to have lived in the period before the Great Deluge, and therefore was a contemporary of two other legendary kings, Deucalion of Thessaly, and Cecrops of Athens. In Greek mythology, Lykaon is remembered as the king who was punished by the god as a consequence for his pride and impiety. Apart from this rather gruesome story, Lykaon is also known to have been the father of many sons, who founded the villages and towns of Arcadia and gave their names to them. Thus, in a way, Lykaon may be considered a founder hero, despite the heinous crime that he committed. Lykaon's family ties. According to Greek mythology, Lykaon was the son of Pelasgos, who is generally considered to have been the progenitor of the Pelasgians, the earliest inhabitants of Greece. According to one version of the myth, Lykaon's mother was Melibea, while another claims that his mother was Selene. Both figures are said to be nymphs, Melibea being an Oceanid, or daughter of Oceanus, and Selene an Oread, or mountain nymph, who inhabited Mount Selene, a mountain in the Peloponnese. It has been suggested that Melibea and Selene may have in fact been the same figure. A third version of the myth suggests that Lykaon's mother was Deianira, whose father, incidentally, was also named Lykaon. Lykaon is said to have had many wives, and, through them, produced a number of offspring. In general, Lykaon is said to have fathered as many as 50 sons. Nevertheless, the various sources differ regarding their number, as well as their names. During the time of Lykaon, the region of Arcadia was known as Pelasgia, in honor of its founder, Pelasgos. The region was only renamed later on as Arcadia, in honor of Arcas, who was a grandson of Lykaon. Arkas was the son of Callisto, a daughter of Lykaon. In the Greek myths, Callisto was a hunting companion of the goddess Artemis and swore to preserve her virginity. This vow was eventually broken and Callisto gave birth to Arcas. The myth ends with Callisto being transformed into a bear, hunted down, and placed in the sky as the constellation Ursa Major. There are, however, several versions of the myth. For instance, one version states that Zeus took on the guise of Artemis to seduce Callisto. When her pregnancy was revealed, Callisto naturally placed the blame on Artemis. The goddess was not pleased at all, and turned her into a bear. In another version, it was Zeus' jealous wife, Hera, who transformed Callisto into a bear after she found out about what her husband had done. The goddess then persuaded Artemis to shoot the bear. After Callisto's death, Hermes was sent by Zeus to retrieve Arcas from Callisto's womb, and the child was given to the nymph Maia to be raised. The myth of Lykaon. Unlike his daughter Callisto, whose demise was a consequence of the whimsiness so characteristic of the ancient Greek gods, Lykaon's downfall was the result of his own doing. Like the myth of Callisto, and many other Greek myths, as a matter of fact, there are several variations to the story of Lykaon. The most famous version of this myth can be found in Ovid's Metamorphoses. In this version, Zeus reported to the rest of the gods that an infamous report of this unholy age had reached his ears, and hoping that it would prove to be false, the king of the gods decided to visit the world in human form. As night approached, Zeus arrived in Arcadia and revealed himself as a god to the people. While the Arcadians prayed and worshipped Zeus, only Lykaon mocked their pious vows, and said that a fair experiment will prove the truth if this be god or man. Lykaon intended to kill Zeus during his sleep and served human flesh to the god during a meal. According to Ovid, he cut the throat of a Molossian hostage sent to him, and partly softened his still quivering limbs in boiling water, partly roasted them on fires that burned beneath. The dish was served to Zeus, but the god, aware of the trick Lykaon was trying to play on him, was furious, and destroyed his house with thunderbolts. As for the evil king, Zeus had him transformed into a wolf. Terror-struck he took to flight, and on the silent plains is howling in his vain attempts to speak. He raves and rages, and his greedy jaws, desiring their accustomed slaughter, turn against the sheep still eager for their blood. His vesture separates in shaggy hair, his arms are changed to legs, and as a wolf he has the same gray locks, the same hard face, the same bright eyes, the same ferocious look. At the end of the tale, Ovid has Zeus remark, thus fell one house, but not one house alone deserved to perish. Over all the earth ferocious deeds prevail, all men conspire in evil. Let them therefore feel the weight of dreadful penalties so justly earned, for such hath my unchanging will ordained. No doubt Ovid intended to warn his readers against committing evil, lest they suffer divine justice. Variations on the Lykaon myth. Another version of the myth is found in the Bibliotheca of Pseudo-Apollodorus, commonly dated to the 1st or 2nd century AD. Unlike Ovid's version of the myth, the one given by Pseudo-Apollodorus states that the evil deed was perpetrated by Lykaon's sons, rather than the king himself. Incidentally, Pseudo-Apollodorus states that Lykaon had 50 sons and provides the names of each one of them. In any case, the sons of Lykaon are said to have exceeded all men in pride and impiety. Zeus, who intended to see for himself the pride and impiety of these men, visited them in the guise of a day laborer. The sons of Lykaon offered him hospitality, and having slaughtered a male child of the natives, they mixed his bowels with the sacrifices, and set them before him, at the instigation of the elder brother Menelaus. Needless to say, Zeus knew what they did, was furious, and blasted Lykaon and his sons by thunderbolts. Only the youngest son, Nyctimus, was spared, as Gaia was quick enough to lay hold of the right hand of Zeus and so appease his wrath. It was Nyctimus who succeeded Lykaon as king, and it was during his reign that the Great Deluge occurred, which some say was Zeus' punishment for the impiety of Lykaon's sons. It may be added that in some versions of the myth, Nyctimus is said to be the one whom Lykaon slaughtered and prepared as a meal for Zeus. Yet another version of the myth is found in Pausanias' description of Greece, which was written during the 2nd century AD. The story provided by Pausanias is quite different from the ones already mentioned. For instance, Pausanias makes no mention about Lykaon's pride or impiety. In addition, he does not mention anything about Lykaon serving cooked human flesh to Zeus. Instead, it was the human sacrifice that the king performed that incurred Zeus' wrath. Lykaon brought a human baby to the altar of Zeus Lycaeus, and sacrificed it, pouring out its blood upon the altar, and according to the legend immediately after the sacrifice he was changed from a man to a wolf. Therefore, it may be said that Lykaon's crime, according to this version of the myth, was his unfortunate choice of sacrifice to the gods. As a comparison, Pausanias mentions Cecrops, the king of Athens, who was a contemporary of Lykaon, and the type of sacrifice he instituted. My view is that Lykaon was contemporary with Cecrops, the king of Athens, but that they were not equally wise in matters of religion. For Cecrops was the first to name Zeus Hypatis, the supreme god, and refused to sacrifice anything that had life in it, but burnt instead on the altar the national cakes which the Athenians still call pelonoi.